Well, let's begin. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Greetings to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone all over the world. Welcome to the session called Want a Fast Track Career? Let's chat about STEM. My name is Rob Medrano. I'm the Director of International Admission and Recruitment at Pace University in New York. And I am happy to be joined by a new colleague who I've never met, but this is the wonderful world of where we live in. And why don't you introduce yourself, Kyoshi?
Hi, thank you, Rob. Hello everyone. My name is Kiyoshi. I work at the international. I work as the international office director of international office at the Kyoto University of Advanced Science in Japan. Thank you very much for joining us for our exciting topic under our STEM today.
Okay, great. So during this presentation, we're going to be speaking about a number of things. Some of it is going to entail general what is STEM, fields that fall under STEM, opportunities in our respective countries. I'm in the United States, Yoshi's in Japan, and we'll give you perspectives in terms of what we look for and what we look international students should be doing. And then in between all that, it's going to be collaborative where Kiyoshi and myself will be speaking with each other at the same time. Really, we want to make this not just informative, but also collaborative. So if anyone throughout the presentation has a question, you can put it in the chat in the Q&A. Just realize that we will not be able to answer those questions, most likely until the end of our presentation, so that way we're able to give all the information out to everyone. So first and foremost, what is STEM? So I think nowadays, most students are exposed to what the field of STEM entails. But for anyone that may not know, this is why we're here, to basically be able to educate and inform. STEM falls under science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Nowadays, you may also hear about STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. But for all intents and purposes, we'll just stick to what the STEM falls under. So what fields, and when I mean by fields, I'm talking about what you're looking to study, and at the same time later on, job opportunities. Tons, and when I mean tons, I am talking a plethora, a large amount of opportunities and fields to study fall under STEM. You may think of the usual, computer science and petroleum engineering, and yes, those are STEM fields, but there are a number of different programs that fall under STEM. I ended up putting up in the hyperlink what are the fields that fall under STEM. So if you have an opportunity, again, this is being recorded, so later on you will have the opportunity to just pause it when you're watching at your own leisure and be able to find this. But if you go on this site, it's going to give you almost 3 to 4 pages of programs that fall as STEM. And when students do fall in STEM, and we'll cover that in a little bit, but students then have the opportunity to stay a period longer in the United States. Normally for students that are studying, let's say, business or anything outside of a STEM field, they can stay in the United States for up to 18 months. But under STEM, it's extended and students can stay working on OPT for 3 years. So that's kind of like the one big caveat of studying STEM besides the opportunities. But just a small snippet of examples, and Kiyoshi also covers some other areas, but just small areas that fall under STEM. So I think many know about robotics and the engineering fields within civil and mechanical and aeronautical, petroleum, computer science, but you'll have programs even like behavioral science, programs within biology, biochemistry, virology, which is nowadays becoming a hotbed, statistics. So for any students who have a very large interest in mathematics, you may also want to consider studying statistics. The students who study statistics, many of them fall then later on to go into programs like data science, data analyst, and so forth. So they have the opportunity to be able to study that. But again, this is just a snapshot of what STEM falls under. Again, if you later on decide to go onto that website, you can see. So if you're interested, some top jobs in the US. And this is, again, a very small snapshot. Tomorrow, things change. Next week, things change. Next year, and so forth. But right now, the opportunities in the US are falling under programs in computer science. So like data analyst, systems administrator. These are programs that right now students graduating with a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree. So when you come into this program, when you graduate between the ages of 21, 22, you have the opportunity to earn anywhere between 95,000 US dollars to 120,000 US dollars studying these programs as coming out of a bachelor's program. Some students may decide to go for postgraduate to get some further studying. Some students may study another stream as undergraduate and then come in for postgraduate under computer science. So their earning power is a little bit less, but still that's the average. Students that are coming into the usual engineering streams, mechanical, chemical engineering, materials engineering, with materials you're looking at students that are going into studying about like plastics, working with PVC, working with all type of things like that behind the scenes that make a very large amount of money, as well as IT manager and software engineering. So as you can see, in the US itself, many of the top programs are falling under the computer science world. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only consistent thing in the US. There are top programs elsewhere. And also outside of the United States, it can be a whole different opportunity. There may be STEM opportunities available within the car industry or within another type of industry. So just to give you perspective, globally, STEM is highly in demand, but by country, it's different. So, and you'll realize this when we're going through our presentations, that anywhere you go, STEM is an invaluable resource, anyone who's studying STEM. But the country itself may be pushing us a different type of demand. So, STEM and international students. As I mentioned before, STEM jobs in itself are in demand for both domestic students. And when I say domestic, we're talking about our students itself in the United States, Americans, with Kyoshi, the same way for the students that are in Japan that are Japanese. In demand, those students want those jobs, but in the United States itself, the reality is that many of the domestic students are still looking for other types of opportunities. They still want to go into business. They still want to go into the arts. They would still want to go into social sciences, which are all great. But what that means is that there's still a very high number of jobs that are not being filled. So where does that role play? International students come in, they're studying it, and they have an opportunity to go right in and studying these programs. As an international student, you may wonder, where can you actually study, right? You can study in your respective country, but obviously if you're looking to study abroad, there are large opportunities out there. I think for the, when it was maybe about 20, 30 years ago, students only thought about 1 or 2 destinations, United States and possibly the UK. But nowadays, so many countries have advanced their infrastructure, so they have a very large number of universities that are opening its borders, that are opening its doors towards recruiting international students. So it's no longer just the United States and UK. You're looking at my friend right there, Kiyoshi, in Japan. So Yoshi, maybe you want to talk a little bit about, I think I've mentioned a lot of stuff, but from your experience, we were discussing before earlier with international students, it's not just students in the area, right? But maybe you're also recruiting students in other parts of the world. Maybe mention a little bit about the opportunities that international students have in Japan.
Sure. Yeah. So like Rob was explaining to you, or there now are currently in our modern days, and there are so many opportunities and are even in the Asian countries as well, China, South Korea, and also Malaysia and Singapore, and then also Japan. Now you are as an international student, so you can have so many or so many much more opportunity than in the past to explore, or whether you are interested in engineering or not in engineering, not STEM or non-STEM subjects, and there can be so many opportunities. So, if you are interested, and just take your time to explore many countries, as many countries as possible. Let's say if you are living in India or in Bangladesh, just get closer to Asian countries like Singapore once again, and even Malaysia. Malaysia has a lot of Australian university branches, and that you can imagine, and at least 5 or 6 are Australian universities. So you don't really have to go actually physically to Australia to earn a degree, even if you are interested. Actually, you can go to Malaysia to earn a degree from Australian universities. So there can be so much opportunities and available for you to explore, even in Asian countries.
Yeah, that was well said. And just to piggyback on that, I think, with many students, international students, the one thing that they all desire is the same thing that even as you and I, that we work at international, we love traveling and meeting individuals overseas and recruiting and so forth. So for the international student, they have that opportunity to leave their respective country for a while and be able to absorb a whole new culture. But the one thing that is different nowadays than was when 15, 20 years ago is that students have the opportunity to also stay a little closer to home, right? So like for students that are in Asia, within Southeast Asia, Vietnam, or going from Malaysia, they have the opportunity to even stay in that time zone, so their commute is less, right? So they don't have to fly so long, or they can easily go back home in a short amount of time and still be able to have an amazing education. It's no longer that you're settling just because you're staying in a country that's closer by. Many of those universities are very good universities. So they're getting an amazing degree. They can apply it towards their job. And then if they want to go for postgraduate, they can do another country. So I think that's a great opportunity for students nowadays. They're not just limited to just, and listen, I am biased. I work in the United States. I have to promote the United States, but I'm also realistic that when we're meeting with students, our role is really to be able to counsel them and give them the best advice. Sometimes they may not be coming to our respective universities, but maybe it makes sense for them to stay closer to home. And there's nothing wrong with that. If they have an opportunity to just travel, a 4-hour flight to go to Japan, go to Korea, as opposed to a 18-hour flight, which I've done many times, but it's sometimes more on the convenient side. So international students today have boundless opportunities than international students 5 years ago, and especially even like about 15 years ago. The other thing, besides the country, is I think that one of the most important aspects for an international student is selecting what type of university, right? So for example, Pace University, we're in the United States, check. We're in New York, which is a very large market, check. Now, the other thing is, besides the program, is what type of university? Is it a private university? Is versus a public university? It's very different. Private universities usually are smaller, and they don't have state funds, right? From like New York State or the state of New Jersey or whatnot. Usually they're going to be large. State universities are much larger for the most part. So with that being said, some students may not do well in a large classroom setting, in a large university setting. It may be to their advantage to go to a smaller private school where the classrooms are smaller, more interaction between you and the professor, more involved with the university and so forth. Nothing wrong with the large private state institution. It just really depends on the type of student. Some students, it does not matter to them. They just want to be part of a university, large university, etc., and that's fine. The other thing that falls with that is the services behind it, and in terms of advisement, in terms of career services, and I'll touch upon that in a little bit. But Kiyoshi, again, when we were speaking, before, one of the great things that we discussed in terms of in Japan, and even in your experience in that side of the world, it's not just private institutions, correct? So, I mean, I know that you could talk a little bit about your school in terms of what it is, but maybe give also perspective in terms of what other schools are like in your side of the world.
Sure. So if I were to talk about universities and colleges in Japan, as I think that you are not so familiar with the college systems in Japan, like Rob was talking about, there are public universities, also private universities in Japan. And you may be surprised to know that there are as many as 700 private universities in Japan, whereas you also have 70 public universities. And so Japan is such a small country. Although Japan is such a small country, you can expect to explore as many as 800 universities to explore. So once again, you may think that you may think that Japan is a small country. South Korea is a small country. Singapore is a small country. All Asian countries are so small, except in China or India. But actually, there are so many universities you might want to explore before you actually decide what country you want to go, and what type of university you want to go with at. Also, what type of a program you want to pursue, for your undergraduate programs or postgraduate programs. So you might want to spend some time to just count how many universities in your destination, study destination.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the United States alone has over 4,500 types of colleges and universities, so that could be quite daunting. So if students then are eliminating things like location, then program, then type of institution, private and public, and so forth, it could be quite a bit. And it's good to know that even in Japan and those areas, even though they are small countries, there's still a number of universities. But of all things, I'm a big believer that there is a school out there for every student. So I think students should realize that there is an institution that's built exactly for you, that's going to meet your needs, that's going to meet your standards. And also, let's be realistic, sometimes students may decide on a school and realize after a semester, even after a year, it may not be the right fit. After all, students always have the ability to also transfer. You can transfer within another school, you could transfer even to another country. So there is no limitation. Don't feel ever that you're held back. But because the most important thing for us is, and when I mean us, I'm talking about us as admission counselors, admission directors. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable, and we want to make sure that your experience in the university is right. So going to the next segment, as an international student, how do you distinguish yourself, right? You're coming into a new country and you may be in this location for the first time. You're also amongst other international students. You're also amongst domestic students, right? In a university, we all take care of each other. We're supposed to be collegial and friendly and everything like that. But when you are starting to prepare yourself for your career, what is going to set you apart as an international student? And one of the things that I'm proud of working at Pace University is that our students are considered go-getters. right? So they're very hungry, they're driven. And I think when students first come on board, the first question they always ask, and I think Yoshi can also say the same thing, besides the usual questions, is I want to be able to work on campus, right? We understand you want to earn some money. Who doesn't? So students have the ability to work on campus for up to 20 hours a week. Great. Sometimes you may be able to work in an admissions department. Perhaps you could work for the dean's office. So that's a nice way to start your CV, your resume. But the bigger thing are going to be internships, right? And this is why in the bullet I put right next to distinguish itself, career services. And I think every university has a career services department. Some work one way some versus another, but as an international student, this is where you really want to become partners with the career services department, because as an international student, once you have 2 consecutive semesters on campus, you will be able to have a number of internships that you want. And this is an amazing opportunity for you, to network, to meet people in different areas of a company, expose yourself, and then also learning the skills, learning trades, right? Most internships should not be doing menial tasks like administrative or making copies or getting coffee or something like that. Internship, the role for that is to get experience in your field, so that way when you graduate, you already have something under your belt. And for us at Pace, we really believe that the internships are invaluable, and we want to ensure that your experience in your internship is leading you to success. But the other thing with an internship and with career services and so forth that's important, and I'll cover this a little bit later on, is just in terms of sometimes you're trying something out and you realize that might not be what you want to do, right? You're going in, you want to become you study computer science and you wanted to go into data analytics, and you're doing an internship doing that, and you realize, that might not be for me. Maybe you realize you want to go into programming, and that's okay. The number of internships that you have is giving you more and more exposure, which can then lead you to even full-time employment down the road. So this is really, from my experience, for international students especially, is yes, enjoy your time in the classroom, make sure you do well, join clubs, meet as many people as possible, enjoy your location, where you're studying, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Tokyo, whatever the case may be. But also take advantage of where you are and have as many internships as possible, because this is something that when you are graduating and you are meeting with potential employers, when they look at your CV, your resume, they're going to see that you had 2, 3, 4 different places where you worked and gained experience and so forth, because nowadays many companies do not have time to train. They want someone that's coming in and knows as much as possible. You won't know 100%, but the more that you do know, that a hiring manager does not have to spend so much time, that just makes you more of an invaluable asset. Kiyoshi, do you have something to add to that? I know that you probably have plenty of experience also working with students in this regard.
Yeah, Rob, like you said, Rob, like you said, like Rob says, it's you go through these steps and step by steps. Maybe you might want to start hanging around with career services, like Rob advised you. And career services is a great place and to source information about many jobs, many companies, many company actually that has been unfamiliar to you, and just also even just having a little chat with personnel working at the career department, career or departments, and then also give you a might give you a great insight to what kind of jobs are available out there, And if you don't hang around in the career services, you never know what kind of companies are available, what kind of companies even existed in this real world. So really, the first steps for you that you might want to take as a first steps and getting into a real job is just hanging around career services and even just trying to have a little chat with the people working there and just trying to keep yourself updated with what's going on in the real world in terms of job opportunities. That's a very important part. Important parts of your college life in terms of job opportunities. And also internship is a great thing. At the same time, a lot of employers nowadays are looking for people are culturally or accommodating, culturally or sensitive, and it means that not just doing internship, but also try to meet with the different people, different groups of people, and that you are already that you might not have a chance to mingle with, and so far, and try to get an opportunity to work with different people, and even at your or internship processes is going to be a very important part of resumes that you might want to write on and later on. When you want to go or a job interview later on.
Great stuff. And I think, I got a little bit ahead of myself, but once I'm talking about career services and the opportunities, I get very excited about it because, what's an internship? Again, it's the opportunity to be able to work in a company, gain valuable skills. More times than not, internships are not paid unless they're a co-op, and that's a whole separate story. But internships are, students would attain college level credit for it. But the most important thing, again, is it's giving you something to put on your experience level and be able to get from that. And the opportunity to network and meet individuals. I mean, there's stories and stories and stories that I have of students who have done internships that have met someone that's working there, and that individual then left to another company, but remembered that intern and hired them. So they may not necessarily work in that specific company where they were interning, but they were remembered so well because of their work ethic. And that's something that's amazing about international students, the work ethic, the drive, the go-getting, everything is they're hungry. And that's what I love about students that are international. And it's the same thing. These individuals, these hiring managers remember these students because it's hard to find sometimes good employees. That's the reality of it. Or someone that's already trained and they can hire someone that already has those skills. That's invaluable. And that's what the internship is giving you. It's giving you exposure. Again, how is it helping you? It's exposure, it's giving you the opportunity to network, and even possibly becoming your first full-time job. I mentioned before how soon you can start, usually within 1 year of your academic cycle. So you would have to have 2 consecutive semesters in the US to then start being able to take advantage of CPT, which is your curricular practical training, which is basically an internship. And you can have as many as you want, and you can, okay? Just be able to juggle. Obviously, your internship is not just your only responsibility. You are responsible for your grades, right? If your grades start to suffer, then you will not be able to keep your internships. So make sure you focus on your academics, make sure you focus on your club activities and everything, etc. But there is really no limitation. Usually students maybe will do maybe one internship a year. You want to also have a healthy balance. Although we want to exceed expectations and do well and be able to find employment and so forth, you have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to balance your academics and your social lifestyle. Make sure you take advantage of being in a university, being in another country and so forth, and also be able to have your internships. I do see sometimes students overdo themselves and they overwork themselves and they do become stressed. And I think nowadays we want to make sure that every student is enjoying the whole experience of being in a university. So sample internships, some of this may be a tad different than my respective colleague, but in the US, these are internships that students have the opportunity. And again, you do not see anywhere here where it says administrative assistant doing this and that. You are actually doing real work. So whether if you're in the business field, you're an analyst intern. Whether you're in computer science, you could be working as a cloud engineering intern or data applications, data warehouse intern. Again, if you're in business analytics. If for some students, they may want to have even something right outside of it, social media and public relations and so forth. So again, and this is just a sample, it's just a snippet. There's so many companies that start creating new titles and new roles because of what students are studying nowadays. 2 years ago, that might not even existed, that type of program, that type of education. Now it's coming to fruition. So they have, many companies are adjusting, making sure that the internship, the title, reflects what they're studying. Kyoshi, I'm going to go on to your slides now, so that way you can give a little bit more perspective in terms of your side of the world and mirroring kind of what I said.
Sure. So let me discuss some general information regarding engineering in Asia and Japan, if you are interested. Okay, just to give you a better sense, if you are interested in becoming engineers in the future under the STEM education, this is this slide shows you what's going on in the production cars. As you might have noticed that there has been a lot of people nowadays throughout the world have been switching to driving electric cars instead of gasoline cars. And as I'm sure you have read somewhere in the news articles, and sometimes, and again, so many people, there has been so many people are now have been switching to electric cars and are due to environmental concerns. And that has really given us given engineers a whole set of totally different skill sets that requires of modern engineers. Next slide, please. Sorry. So my point is, sorry, thank you, Rob. So precisely because of the reason that I mentioned, let's say, for example, in the auto industries, there has been a great demand for skilled engineers in Japan. So how much? So as of 2020, there are 370,000 too few engineers. Can you imagine 370 or 70,000 are in a great shortage in Japan itself, and by 2030, it has been predicted that there will be as many as 790,000 engineers in the shortage. So it means that the technology as make progress and more advanced, and more engineers, more skilled engineers are always in demand from the industry. So in other words, if you are interested in becoming engineers, and by doing engineering program in Asia or in the US and the UK, and you be one of the most sought after commodities anywhere in the world. Because of the technological advancement. Thank you. So you may be wondering, so Yeah, Rob on the previous Rob briefly mentioned the wage levels in as an for skilled engineers in the United States, and you may be wondering about how much can I earn as a skilled engineers in Asia? And my answer is this slide. As you can see, Japan, for example, on average, as a skilled engineers, whether it's the new engineers and your older engineers, experienced engineers, I'm talking about the average salaries for the skilled engineers in Asia. So let's say, let's say if you want to work in Japan as a skilled engineer, you could be making 43,000 US dollars per year as a skilled engineers. And you might want to end up working in Korea as a skilled engineers, and then you can earn $32,000 per year. And Hong Kong and Singapore, or let's say Singapore, because you might think that Singapore is much closer to your home country than South Korea and Japan. And then you might, then if you are working in Singapore, you'll be making a 36,000 US dollars per year as a skilled engineer. You may think that, oh, wow, this is not as good as being the engineers in the United States, but just take into consideration the cost of living in Asia, you see. So cost of living in Asia comparatively a lot more affordable than living working as an engineer, let's say in the United States, in the UK, and in Australia. Then then you might want to rethink, oh, maybe Asia is an option, might be a good option for you to become an engineer, so to start working as an engineer in the industry. Yeah, so yeah, I think that if you are thinking of only the UK or US as your study destination for your engineering programs, and of course, I'm sure you know about Google on Facebook and there, but if you want to take a look at the Asian side, and there are also many world-class first companies existing in Asia as well, as you can see here. Good example is our Nintendo. Even if you don't know anything about the Nintendo, I'm sure you know about Pokemon, Mario, Animal Crossing. And those are computing online gaming products, and actually actually produced by companies that are headquartered in Japan, and Nintendo. And Nintendo actually are actually headquartered in our cities in Kyoto, KYOTO. And this is a good example, one of the best examples to show you that there are so many world-class or first-class companies actually are operating even in Asia. And not only Nintendo, Omron, Nidec, Rome, Kyocera, or maybe Toyota or Suzuki, Honda, and Nissan, and all these companies are Asian companies. And you might want to work for them in the future by taking advantage of the degrees you earned in your universities, whether it's UK or whether it's UK, US, and Asian universities. So once again, your opportunities just light beside you. You might not only in the UK, not only the US, not only China, even in a small country like Singapore, that can give you so many work opportunities you might want to explore as a skilled engineers, or maybe graduate students from an engineering school in Asia. That's a little bit about what's going on in Asia. Thank you.
That's great information. I'm glad that you discussed in terms of the cost of living, because when I was looking at the salaries, I know that I mentioned a certain amount and it wasn't comparable, but definitely the cost of living is much different. So when you think about 48,000 living in Asia versus 100,000 in the US, it's really not a comparison because you have to look at the cost of living. So I definitely am glad that you did mention that. What I wanted to do is now, but we have about 20 minutes of time, so we could dedicate a little bit of time just discussing about our respective universities, and maybe if there are any question and answers, we can answer now, or you could always come back to our emails and so forth and discuss a little bit about, personalized, and we could touch base. But with our university, we are located in New York City. We are a multi-campus university, so we do have a location downtown in Manhattan, near Wall Street Financial District, so it's only about 5 minutes away. We also have a small campus in Westchester and Pleasantville. So for some students that may want to be in New York, but maybe want a more suburban atmosphere, we offer that. But what I really wanted to touch upon, because this is really about STEM and whatnot, is really career services. And with our university, we really dedicate a good amount of time towards our international students. We have a dedicated team that just work with international students. They help them out with interviewing techniques, setting up interviews for them, working with them throughout their time in university, and even later on as alumni. And they have, they work with doing recruitment fairs, as well as application called Handshake, which allows students to be able to see opportunities all over the world, not just in New York, not just the United States, but even outside of that. So many of our students do well coming in to PACE and working with our career services, as Kyoshi said, hang around, talk to them, because they always have things that come up and how they can help you out. So to give you examples again of OPT opportunities for students, which is again, once a student is graduated, they have the opportunity to be on OPT. For STEM, they can stay in the US for 3 years. Sometimes, companies may want to keep the students and then they have to go through another process called the H-1B visa, but that's a whole separate story and there's no guarantee with that. But the big thing that is really important is at least get 3 years of optional practical training. This is just an example of our students in computer science, working at companies like Altice and Cigna and Amazon, LinkedIn, MasterCard, Microsoft, Spotify, Verizon, all, top 100 companies, working as a network engineer or as a logistics analyst or as a software analyst, and so forth. Some students even on the business side, these are not necessarily always STEM fields, but sometimes there is a kind of a commingling. So you have programs like even like actuarial science or anything within social media. So they kind of fall as also opportunities, but CPT is really more the internship side of it while you are in school. So again, working in places like Bank of China, like Godiva, HSBC, Jimmy Choo, PwC, and so forth. And again, doing stuff like tax interns, patron services, digital strategy and content interns. So that would actually be like a STEM related field. Working as an associate, mortgage loan, email marketing intern, again, and so forth. So for me, I'm a big believer. It's not who you know. It's who you know, not what you know. I apologize. And how do you do that? Is really through networking. Yet we live in a time where everything is fed to us digitally. We can just go and type in the search, and here in the United States, you have Indeed come up, and you have Google, showing listings for jobs and so forth. And so many individuals are applying for these opportunities that these companies sometimes don't have the time to really look through all these resumes. But again, if you know someone, and this is why working with career services is important. This is why having multiple internships are important, because it gives you exposure. It allows you to meet so many people in a company. And again, I mentioned this before, there's so many times where hiring managers remember that really great student, that really great intern, and they go somewhere else, or they may even go into another division within the same company. And they say, you know what? I remember Rob. He was one of my interns. He was able to grasp things right away. I didn't have to repeat myself, understood what needed to be done, et cetera, et cetera. Trust me, that's something that does not get forgotten. And that's I would be called. Let's say I'm the intern. They will call me to go in for either another internship, maybe a paid internship, or even for an OPT assignment. And again, I didn't have to interview anywhere. I didn't have to send resumes. I basically got it because of who I know. And how do you do it? I mean, we work with our students in career services through LinkedIn. We work on their profile, highlight everything that they've done, making sure that they're trained and everything is on their profile. We set up career fairs that are specifically just for international students, club events that are international based. Also have opportunities to volunteer. I think sometimes we think of volunteer as just extra work and we're not getting anything out of it. But again, you would be surprised how many times students volunteer, let's just say to help out somewhere for about 10 hours a week, and they're doing something at a major company, or let's say Salvation Army, which is nonprofit, but they may need someone down the road to work as their software engineer. Salvation Army is a very large nonprofit and so forth. So that may happen. Work with your professors, at PACE, because we are a small private school. 90% of our faculty do have PhDs, but they also have real world experience. So you're learning from the best of both worlds, someone that's worked in the field and someone that has the academic experience. So these are also individuals that know people that are in the industry. And again, technology, as a university, we have something called Handshake, which is a special application that allows students to be able to see opportunities, not just in the US, but all over the world. Success for our students, we're looking at students that are working in financial services and consulting, hospitality and tourism, arts, entertainment. These are the industries, but all of these have STEM opportunities behind it. Fast facts. Most of our students for internships, I know I mentioned that most of the times they should not go into it thinking it's paid, but 81% are paid. This is just kind of give you an example of just what career services does. It's more than just an office. It's people who genuinely care, people who have a vested interest in you, as I mentioned before. Hang out, speak to someone there. I mean, career services, that's what they love. They love to be able to help students find that perfect internship, find that employment. So when you work with them, they work with you. These are just, again, I mentioned before, employers that recruit. Most of the really good universities are always going to have employers that are going to come in to recruit. I'm sure Kiyoshi could say the same thing before, as he mentioned in one of his slides, but you have companies like Mitsubishi, you have companies like PwC, Canon. You can see these are some names that are highlighted in Japan, right? You have Canon, you have Mitsubishi, all right? So these are companies that, they're global and they're in the US, or, they're recruiting in the US and you may want you to work in Japan. So these are the opportunities as an international student that you would have. Kiyoshi, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you. So let me discuss now our university, Kyoto University of Advanced Science. It's located in Kyoto, in Kyoto, in Japan. Japan, thank you. Kyoto is I'm not so sure if you have known about this. Kyoto was the capital of Japan for longer than 1,000 years. And because of that, dozens of national and cultural treasures are located in Kyoto, as you can see here. You can literally, if you choose to come to our university as a student, so you can see all these beautiful shrines, temples, even big castles, maybe 50 meters high. So you can see all these beautiful traditional institutions literally on a daily basis as a student. Kyoto is an amazing place. Thank you. And a little bit about our university. KUS has our over 50-year history, and it is a private university, but it is also Japanese government accredited University. And it has 3,600 students and offers programs at 5 faculty, including our brand new faculty of engineering. Are 80, there are at our engineering school alone, there are as many as 80 international students from 20 countries. Actually, we are applications from all around the world, usually 40 countries around the world for our engineering program because next slide, please. Thank you. Because reason number one is you may be surprised that yes, our university is located in Japan. You may think that, oh, wow, we need to learn the Japanese language to enroll in our programs. And my answer is no, because our program is an international engineering program. So our 100% programs conducted entirely in the English language. Which I believe is going to be a great news for you, for students like you who are already fluent in the English language. That's number one. And then number two, still we offer you an opportunity to learn the Japanese language at no additional cost as a part of your required coursework as engineering students on our programs. In a way that is going to help you or linguistically is going to help you or find a job opportunities with Japanese companies, which is still predominantly Japanese speaking environment. So you need to speak English to get a job in Japan. Then we gonna help you with the Japanese language proficiency as a course of as a part of your coursework. And then number three, like Rob mentioned, it's important for you to have that real experience even before you jumping into a real world as a professional. But sometimes you might find it a little bit overwhelming, or you might find it a little hard to adjust yourselves to busy schedules as an intern sometimes. And so we came up with professors who have come up with a very innovative program that is going to place you as Japanese companies over 2 years as a part of your required coursework. And it's what we call a capstone project. Means that consider this as a sort of over 2 years intensive internship program only for engineering students at our universities. So you don't, at our university, you don't really have to go for an extra internship programs. Actually, you become our engineering students, then automatically is gonna give you or chance opportunities to work with the engineers who are actually currently working in the Japanese industry over 2 years, so that you can take advantage of those experiences that you want to obtain from working with them over 2 years, and then you be able to work immediately to making a great and making a positive impact in the society, also making our companies that you're going to work for even from the day one upon the completion of our program. And then number four, yes, we also do have our career department that is specifically assigned to help international students find a job within Japan, also beyond the borders as well. And just give you an example, or I'd like to just give you an example that our university has a close tie with the industry. Mr. Nagamori Shigenobu has like the world's largest motor company in the world called NIDEC, NIDEC, and he became the chairman of our university and quickly decided making an investment as much as $120 million in order to found this engineering program for international students to nurture the next generation of talented engineers for companies throughout the world, not just for his companies. So if you become our engineering program students, you might want to take advantage of his personal tie with the industry, also professional tie with the industry. And that's how we call why that's the reason why we call our universities that is closer than ever to the industry in Japan. Yeah, that's about our university.
But I think, we were originally thinking that we were going to have too much time, and I think we only left it down to like 5 minutes. But the thing is that, this is an important topic, because I think it's always changing in terms of STEM. And I think what you and I were able to convey to students, I think it's an invaluable resource. So regardless, I mean, there are a few participants. If there are any questions, we can definitely answer within the next 5 minutes. But more importantly, this is our email addresses. So myself and also Kyoshi. So if anyone has a question, please, by all means, just put in the subject line, heard your webinar on worldwide tours, and ask your question. We're definitely more than able to answer any question you have via email, or even set up a private Zoom chat later on. We'll definitely be able to. But I think at this time it was really informative. Thank you, Kyoshi, for joining me to be able to discuss it. I felt like I learned something, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and you still learn something every day. It's important to know that, again, for students, there are so many options out there. There's so much opportunity. It's not just relegated to just being on the Western side of the world. There's opportunities everywhere, whether you're going into Europe or whether you're going into parts of Asia or Southeast Asia and so forth. So I think this is times of students having so many changes and so many opportunities is great, and I think, variety is such a spice of life. I think one of the things you mentioned before is also the diversity. Our school has students from over 100 different countries. Yours has almost from 80 different countries. So, I mean, that's pretty great as well. So I think being exposed to so many different peoples is invaluable, put it that way. Again, if anyone, when you're seeing this, or later on, if you're able to see this recorded webinar, please take this as informative. And obviously things always change dynamically, but by all means, feel free to reach out to Kyoshi and myself.
Okay, thank you very much for everyone. Like Rob says, please feel free to contact us anytime. So if you are interested, thank you very much for your time. And Rob, thank you very much. Really appreciated your taking initiative.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for presenting. The presentation was really informative. I was paying attention, and I learned a lot as well. So thank you so much. And if you did have any questions for either of our two speakers here, you can check them out at their booth in the exhibit hall. We still have some time before the end of the fair. So thank you again for presenting, and thank you to all those who came out.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you. Have a good day. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.